hell is empty, and all the devils are here. William Shakespeare. Bunker Cannibals. The blizzard swallowed the horizon as if death itself had chosen to shroud the earth in a shroud of white, lifeless snow. I had been walking for more than a day, my legs sinking into an endless slurry of ice and cold, my breath breaking into ragged gasps, my stomach twisting with a hollow emptiness that made my vision blur. The world was dead, I knew that. The cities were gone, the voices of people had long since fallen silent, and only the wind, forever hungry and merciless, sang its mournful song across the ruined plains. At times it seemed to me that I heard footsteps behind me, someone following, cautious, hidden. But every time I turned, I saw only the endless white whirlwind. Sometimes I even wondered, was I alive at all? Perhaps this was hell itself, an endless road through the void, with no end in sight where every step was a form of torture. But even hell can surprise you, and just when my strength was failing me, I noticed a black spot in the snow, a metal hatch nearly buried under a crust of ice. I trudged on, scarcely noticing the road. Time had lost its meaning. Day and night had merged into a single gray twilight where only the blizzard set the rhythm of existence. Sometimes I would stop and listen to the crunch of snow under my boots and the hollow wail of the wind, and a terrifying thought would rise in me. Maybe I'd been dead for a long time, and this was only the shadow of my former body wandering the frozen wastes. Hunger gnawed at me like any wild beast. I tried eating chunks of ice-crusted bark from frost-dead trees, but they only shredded my throat. I tried melting snow in my mouth, but the cold bit down to the teeth, and my thirst only grew fiercer. Sometimes my stomach made noises that sounded like something living and scratching inside, begging to be fed. I walked and walked until I suddenly noticed a dark spot in the snow. My heart shoved against my ribs and my feet quickened of their own accord. At first I thought, stone, scrap metal, another useless illusion spawned by hunger and exhaustion. But the closer I got, the clearer the outline of an iron cover became, sinking into the snow. A hatch, a real hatch. I dropped to my knees and began breaking through the icy crust with my hands, my nails, even my teeth, like an animal that had scented its prey. The metal was cold, strangely, burningly foreign. I hauled on the ring with all my strength. It gave, and the heavy lid with a creak opened. From the depths came a rush of warm, stale air that carried the smell of life. Life, down there. I stared into that black opening for a long time, unable to trust my eyes. The darkness that plunged downward looked like both salvation and a trap at once. But the dying have no right to choose. I descended the iron ladder, and the hatch behind me closed with a dull clang. The ladder dropped downward, each metal rung trembling beneath my feet as if resisting my intrusion. A damp, heavy warmth wafted up from below and made my head swim. After the frozen waste, the smells were brutal, a mix of mildew, rust, and something I couldn't immediately place. I found myself in a narrow corridor, the walls painted in flaking green. Pipes ran along the ceiling, water dripping from them, and every echo of a falling drop sent a shiver through me. I moved slowly, step by step, until a dim light appeared ahead. And then I heard footsteps. They were coming closer, steady, cautious. In a moment, a man stepped out from around the corner. He wore a long, worn cloak. His face looked waxen and pale. He stared at me too intently, but said nothing. "You, from above?" he rasped at last. I nodded, unable to find words. "Come," he said. and turned away. I had no strength to argue. I followed him. Soon the corridor opened into a roomy space lit by a lamp hanging from the ceiling. A few others sat there, men and women wrapped in tattered blankets. They froze when I entered, like beasts who have smelled an intruder. Their eyes, deep, hollow, taut with tension, were fixed on me. I tried to smile, but my lips wouldn't obey. "He's alone," my guide said. "Completely alone." A few seconds of silence stretched into forever. Then one of the women, her face thin as a skull, nodded. She held out a tin with something warm and thick inside. "Eat," she whispered. I didn't ask what it was. I ate greedily, swallowing mouthful after mouthful and feeling life returning to me. But with the warmth of the food came another feeling, strange, sticky. They all watched without blinking, as if waiting. In that moment, I understood for the first time. Salvation can be worse than death. The first night I slept poorly. It had been too long since I'd felt warmth or a solid surface beneath me, and still my sleep was restless, as if the walls themselves were pressing down. Far off, there were footsteps and dull thuds, as though someone was shifting heavy iron. Sometimes I woke with the sensation of being watched, but when I lifted my head, I saw only darkness. In the morning, I tried to speak with them. Every answer was short, clipped. It seemed the very word was foreign to them. They ate together, but in silence, and I kept catching their looks, long, piercing, without a hint of human warmth. I asked how many of them there were. The woman with the skull-like face said softly, "Enough." When I wanted to know what lay further down the corridors, one of the men glanced at me sharply and said, "That's not for you." After that, the conversation ended. I noticed something else. In the corner stood a large metal crate, draped with a tarpaulin. Whenever someone passed it, they seemed to avert their eyes, as if from something forbidden. Sometimes a faint sound came from it, like scraping or a knock. But when I drew near, everyone would suddenly come to life, chattering just to divert me. I ate their food, but its taste felt stranger and stranger, a thick, viscous mass with none of the familiar notes of grains or root vegetables. I tried to tell myself it was dried vegetables or some kind of mushroom, but another thought began to take root in my mind like a weed. And yet the worst thing was not the food or their silent stares. The worst was the feeling that they were waiting for something from me. On the third day, I noticed there were fewer people. 2 of the men I had seen before were gone. I asked where they were, and the woman with the empty eyes said, "They left." But I had seen their boots at the entrance. I had seen fresh tracks in the mud leading deeper into the bunker. And there was no exit there. That night a knock woke me. I stepped into the corridor and moved quietly toward the sound. The lamps here burned dimly, many of them flickering as if dying with the world. In that stuttering light, I saw a door, just a crack open. I peered inside. In the room lit by a single kerosene lamp, those same people stood, working at a metal table. At first, I didn't understand what they were handling. But when the tarp slipped off the edge, I saw a hand, a human hand. They were cutting it like meat. I recoiled, barely holding back vomit. One step back, the floor creaked. One of them lifted his head. His eyes met mine. There was no surprise in that look, only an empty, cold knowing. I ran. My heart hammered and my legs carried me down the corridor without my remembering how I reached my bunk. Lying in the dark, I trembled all over, pretending to sleep. Still, I felt it. They knew. They knew I had seen, and now they waiting their turn. I could no longer stay among them. Every minute near those people, if they could still be called people, seared my mind with fear. I ate their food, and now I knew what it was. Two horrors warred inside me, hunger and knowledge. At night I rose. I wasn't asleep. None of us slept. We only pretended. Their breathing around me sounded artificial, as if they lay waiting for a command. I got up carefully and made my way toward the exit. The corridors were long and winding, as if the walls themselves were trying to keep me inside. Metal rang under my feet, each sound tolling through me like a bell. I reached the ladder and had already touched the cold rungs with my hands when I heard footsteps. They were following me. First one, then a second, then more. The rumble multiplied, turning into a rhythm, heavy, deliberate, like the heartbeat of a monster. I tore up the ladder, my nails almost snagging on the metal. Above was only darkness and the hatch, so heavy that opening it alone seemed nearly impossible. But I pulled and jerked until my muscles burned. Voices were already audible behind me, hoarse, low, inhuman. "Leave him. Let him go. Let him run. The snow will take him." But another answered, "No." "You don't let meat go," I screamed, from fear and exertion. And the hatch gave. The wind hit my face, icy and furious. I burst out into the open, leaving their reaching hands behind me. The metal slammed shut with a crash, and the darkness stayed below. I fell into the snow, gulping the frozen air, and for the first time in my life, the cold felt like a blessing. I ran blindly, not caring where, until my lungs burned and my chest felt like it would tear. But even in the roar of the blizzard, I heard their voices. They didn't shout or call. They laughed softly, hollowly, so that the sound dissolved into the storm and followed me like a shadow. I walked through the blizzard without remembering the way. Snow burned my face. The wind ripped at my breath, but I kept going. Every step felt like the last, yet the thought of the death waiting below, worse than anything down there, pushed me forward. The world around me was empty. Only a white abyss and the black silhouettes of ruined buildings. Sometimes I thought I saw a light flickering in the distance, like a fire in someone's window. But when I drew closer, there was nothing but a heap of snow and ice. Hunger came back, stronger than before. I felt it tearing me apart from the inside, and every inhale sent a dull ache through my stomach. I heard voices again, not the wind, not memory, the same voices from the bunker. They whispered right into my ear, as if someone walked beside me, invisible in the snowy veil. "You're ours, anyway. No one leaves." I looked back. There was no one, only the whirl of the storm. But inside I knew. They hadn't let me go because I'd managed to escape. Number. They had let me, so the snow would finish what they had begun. I fell to my knees. I had no strength left. A white fog swam before my eyes, shapes emerging within it. People, shadows, the same faces from the bunker. I couldn't tell. The last thing I tasted was snow on my lips. It was cold, but it carried the same flavor as their food. The same, metallic, heavy, human. And then everything disappeared. The blizzard fell silent. Only silence remained.